up, Brandon? How we doing today?
Same old, Patrick. How you doing?
Okay. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, you and I both watched Peter Coffin's latest video on YouTube. I forget what it was called, but I wouldn't say it was a hit job, but it was definitely critical of Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
And I know that's something that you and I disagree on. You're all about Bernie. I'm all about Liz.
Well, hold on. I'm not necessarily, quote unquote, all about Bernie. I just prefer Bernie.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
The thing I'm all about is ending capitalism.
Well, yeah.
Which, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
But, yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah, no. And, I mean, I would prefer Elizabeth Warren, but I'd vote for Bernie if he were the candidate. And you prefer Bernie, but would vote for Elizabeth Warren,
Yes.
So, and I think they both have similar goals. And I know you and I agree that the end goal of, I don't know, the movement or whatever it is we're doing is the end of capitalism.
Yeah.
Because, like we've said before, capitalism is just there to enslave people. Mm-hmm. So I know we disagree on the steps to get there. And I think... Well, let me just lay it out. I think that a revolution, like a communist revolution, is not the right way, especially considering the current political climate, because there's a very much a drawing of lines in the sand, and the right is so reactionary right now that the further left the left goes, the more they freak out.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that's kind of like the process of dialectics. That's literally like how revolutions happen.
Yes.
Is at least, in a Hegelian sense. You have like these diametrically opposed factions of social discourse that become increasingly more and more antagonistic towards each other until there's some sort of break. And by the way, my cat is a co-host of this podcast now, just so you know. So that's part of, like, at least in the Hegelian Marxist sense, that's how revolutions happen. Right. Now, you're right. It could just, add fuel to the fire of the reactionary right. But I'm not sure how else to, like, kind of address that as an issue. We didn't necessarily like intend on talking about that specifically, but
well, that's part of it. I am in favor of a more measured approach and slow burn revolution, if you will, because I have seen, and we've seen so many changes for good in the past few decades with the rise of, the leftists. We've made strides as a society. That is in contrast to Trumpism and the Bush years and all this stuff. Bad things did happen, and the bad people got worse. But I do think that we as a society have gotten better over the past 2-3 decades.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Even like the furthest left people you can imagine I don't think that even they would disagree with that. It's not a matter of, like, obviously, like, society today is way less racist than it was 50 years ago.
Right.
That's just an obvious fact, but it doesn't mean that things still are like it's just kind of weird having to kind of think about, like, this in ethical terms on, like, comparing different aspects of history.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how to, like, go into that, but I feel like we're already kind of off the rails with this conversation.
I'm going somewhere with it.
Yeah, you keep talking.
I know most people hear that and think, like, most people in my family or, my friends' parents who I grew up with, they're the ones who say, well, gun control would never work, so let's not do it. And banning abortion just means people will find a way to do it, will mean people just won't do it. And so let's do it that way. And it's so biased, like it's confirmation bias, just plain and simple. And I think that the strides we've made as a society are good, and we're keeping pace. And I don't
But the question is, like, is it good enough? Because, like, right now there are still plenty of people suffering as a result of racism or sexism or just classism. There's still, like, issues with people suffering under the system that we have right now. And so, you know, people who are at the lowest rung of society are going to perceive their problems as being extremely urgent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And rightfully so, if they're really struggling, you know, and I'm among those people, being like mostly a poor dude.
Right.
I don't know if I'm technically in poverty since I'm a single dude, like making $20 an hour, but people have a right to complain and have a right to feel like these issues are urgent. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And I think empathy is definitely important. I think the biggest issue that we on the left are facing right now is how much should change and when. Mm-hmm. And that is a difficult question because there are a lot of people in dire straits and people who are oppressed and frankly just dying in the streets. Like, we are the richest country in the history of the world, and we have people dying in our streets.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody who's, you know, not our parents' generation, who's not a boomer, would look at that and go, you know, and even them, I mean, humans are wired for empathy.
We can sort of like, here's what I say. That's a good intro. We'll get into it a little bit later. I sent you an article. Hey listeners, sorry to cut into the episode here, but I wanted to let you know that during this portion of the episode, Brandon and I go on a long tangent about a highly reactionary article about labor policies that I found online. We've decided to make this part of the episode bonus content for patrons. So if you want to hear us make fun of a bad article about labor policies, go become a patron at our Patreon page, patreon.com/upthedown escalator. And now I will awkwardly edit this audio back into our debate over Liz or Bernie. So, how urgent is this? How urgent is this problem?
Oh, yes.
Which is what we were originally going to talk about.
No, yes, it does all come around. If I had my way, it would be a 1-year process.
Okay. Because I wouldn't even go that far.
There's a way to transition from the capitalist society we're in to a socialist government. And there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how that works because socialism cannot exist without capitalism.
Well, not right now.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, no, you can't. You can't overthrow capitalism.
Right.
Like tomorrow.
And I
don't believe that. And no leftist I know of believes that.
Right.
Not even fucking Lenin himself believed that. In fact, that was a big part of like what made him controversial among leftists was because he was like, we need a transitionary stage.
Yes. Yeah.
And that transitionary stage he called state capitalism. And that's what the Soviet Union did. That's what China is right now. State capitalism, which is basically like, okay, we have capitalism, but we're gonna manage it.
Yes.
Like on a centrally planned level. Right. Now, as far as like, you know, when are we gonna get there? Like what is it gonna take? Do we need to have a violent revolution, or is the revolution something that is an ongoing thought process that never ends? That's kind of like the Trotskyist belief system, I think. I don't know much about Trotskyism, but I think that was kind of the idea there. It gets complicated for sure.
Yes, definitely.
But for me, I don't think that Warren represents that. I think Warren represents a kind of, she's not quite as bad as like Andrew Yang, where Andrew Yang is overtly trying to pacify people.
Right.
But I do think that there's some sense in which, like, okay, Warren will come in and she'll make certain reforms to the system, but provide no way for those reforms to be immune from attack by reactionaries. Does that make sense?
Right.
So her plan, her health plan, just to be specific, because that's the big issue in the United States is health. And so that's where a lot of this debate is coming from. But you and I, we're concerned about the whole economy, not just health, but health is the biggest issue because it seems like it's the most urgent because people are actually dying because of it. So her health plan is basically, okay, listen, let's do a public option. I'll pass that in my first year or whatever. And we'll see how it goes. And then in the third year, when an election cycle is heating up and the Republicans are like horny to destroy Elizabeth Warren, you know, because the thing with like something like a public option, if you were to implement that, it would be challenging in the sense that like it may not produce the results that people expect, right? There may, like even if you were to implement a public option that was competing with private insurance, we may still have a lot of the same problems 3 years from now that we have now, right? And so if there are still problems with people not having enough coverage or not being able to pay their health bills, the Republicans can come along and say, well, look, Elizabeth Warren, she implemented this public option and it didn't work, you know? And so they will rally up their base who are reactionary and think, oh, you know, my health problems are all Warren's fault or whatever.
Right.
And bye public option.
Yes.
Like before there's even a chance for like the idea of Medicare for all to be implemented. Right. So that's what I worry about with like her plan that she came out with, trying to like pass Medicare for all in her last year. I don't know. I would prefer that. At least it's something, you know, and it might, you know, a public option would do good things. And I think it would alleviate a lot of problems. But does it go far enough? And like, is it immune from attack? And that's what I'm worried about.
Right. No, and that is a fair criticism.
And by the way, I don't think like if Bernie Sanders became president and passed Medicare for all, I don't think that's not a revolution.
No,
that's not a communist revolution. Yeah. That's not, you know. Yeah. It would just be like, oh, hey, people aren't dying anymore because they don't have insurance. That's it.
Right.
You know.
Right. No, I kind of look at it as, frankly, I don't think Medicare for all will pass in the next 2 years.
I think that just depends on.
Oh yes, there are definitely many moving parts.
It depends on
too.
like what happens with the Senate.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, and I don't know.
Right.
I don't think anyone knows. I think it's probably pretty unlikely that Democrats will take the Senate, but I don't know. I think it's kind of unpredictable at this point. I mean, though no one thought Donald Trump would win the presidency, and he did.
Yeah.
So
and to earlier this month there was the blue wave in Virginia, and they took back their state senate, and the Alabama.
It's actually looking pretty optimistic. Like with was it like Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky governor
like,
just
holy shit. There's a Democrat like governor in Kentucky. What the fuck? Like,
I mean, more
like
shocking is the Alabama governor who
I haven't even followed that at all.
Yeah. But you know, so there is cause for optimism that Democrats are getting out and voting and fighting, which is what we need, which is what we did not do in 2016, and we started to do in 2018 in the midterm. I think that we'll get there, and I think that's true because, like, okay, boomer, they're not in charge as much anymore. You know, most millennials are approaching 40, and they're the ones who are owning businesses, and they're the ones who are running for, like, state and local elections, and they're the ones who are starting to run for Congress and Senate. So we're getting there. My concern, personally, and this is just kind of my read on the situation and what I see, is that too left too fast will do more damage than good, because I have some libertarian friends.
Okay, but is Medicare for all too left too fast? That's my question. I don't think it is.
Oh no,
I don't even think Medicare for all is that left. The truly left position on healthcare would be nationalizing every avenue of health in the country, which Medicare for all doesn't do.
No, absolutely not. I do agree. I think Medicare for all is. Frankly, I don't like Warren's plan on that. As I told you, I think she's being reactionary as she was with her DNA test. I think that's her biggest flaw, because she makes missteps. Most of her other plans, with the rare exception of a few, are extremely well thought out. She has plans on how to work with Mitch McConnell and work around him if she has to, and there's a lot there. I do think that plan will be revised.
Okay.
If not before the election, she'll do it afterwards if she gets elected.
Well, what happens if she does get the general and she's up against Trump? You see what I'm saying? Like, is she going to start moving more towards the right when that happens? It's almost like I can't tell if she's going to do that or not, because a lot of Democratic politicians have done that in the past.
Yeah.
Obama did it. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton did it. Al Gore.
Yes.
Like every time they go up into the general, it's like all of a sudden they're like, oh, I need to like appeal to Republicans.
Right.
To make sure my shit's not too left or whatever.
Right.
Even though in the primary they're like, yeah, universal healthcare, woo,
Right. No, I think right now the only candidate that would do that is Buttigieg, and he's already started to.
Oh yeah,
and
fuck Buttigieg.
Yeah.
He's one of the more dangerous ones, I think. Him
yes,
and Biden
definitely.
are the two most dangerous when it comes to that. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. But I think the left candidates, specifically Bernie and Warren, which, let's face it, it's going to come down between the two of them.
I imagine so. I don't know. It depends on what happens to Biden. Like his numbers have been, it seems
honestly,
like they've been going down.
I think if it's going to be between Buttigieg and Biden, it's going to be Buttigieg. I think Biden's done.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But I don't think that either Warren or Bernie will give up much ground. Bernie won't give up any.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm not changing my mind.
It's a good impression. Nice.
Thank you. I haven't been working on it. And Warren may budge on a few things that really won't matter that much. But I think that either one of them, I don't think Medicare for All has a good chance of passing. The reason I personally prefer Warren and her policies is because she has a lot of them, and she's thought it through, and it's a web and a thought out plan on how to start transitioning things towards more of a welfare state than we've been, because a lot of that has been repealed or broken or just rendered completely useless by specifically the Trump presidency. Mm-hmm. And I would rather that framework begin to be put back in place so that 4 years after that, when, a 50-year-old millennial or Gen Xer is running for president and all the, Zennials or whatever the hell we're calling kids. Yeah, Zoomers. Yeah. What? That makes no sense.
They're called Zoomers, yeah.
That's insane.
That's the word for them.
Oh, my God. God bless them. Anyway, they're all 18 now, so they're going to vote, and most of them are going to vote for Bernie if they do go vote.
We'll see.
I
think a lot of them are like Yang dudes. I don't really know.
Yeah. Yang's a non sequitur, whatever. He doesn't matter. Yeah. But, 4 more years from now, guess what? They're all going to be out of college. They're all going to be saddled with the debt of college. Yeah. And they're raised even more so in the world that we were raised, where we have the entirety of the world suffering at our fingertips at all times. Yeah. We're always exposed to the worst news. Mm-hmm. We always see how bad the world is. So any little thing that we see that's good, like, oh man, I love going to a basement show with 12 people and just rocking out to some hardcore band. That is everything to me. Because that's my avocado toast. People complain about how much money millennials spend on things that don't matter or aren't worth anything. And it's like, we crave experience because we live in such a shitty world. The next generation, it's going to be worse for them. And they're the ones who are going to have to start turning the shit around. They're the ones who are going to have to reverse the effects of global warming. They're the ones who are going to have to deal with the effects of late stage capitalism. And
okay, I'm going to stop you just for a second, because I don't think you're wrong. However, it's not really a reason for us to give ground, because here's my concern with what you're talking about. I think if we're going to have progressive president, and here's the thing. I just looked at the numbers today. Pretty much all of the, if you do a head-to-head poll with the Democratic candidates against Trump, they all beat him.
Oh, yeah.
They all beat him. The top two are Biden and Sanders, are the two people who have the best numbers against beating Trump. Biden, I think he's chugging along on name recognition alone, and that number is unstable and it will go down. Bernie may be able to maintain it, and it may go up if Biden goes down. There may be a ceiling to that. I don't know. But the point is, let's say we have a progressive president, Warren or Sanders, go into the presidency. I would rather someone go into the presidency with the with an uncompromising starting. Well, let me not say uncompromising. Let me say with a starting pitch that is further to the left, because if he had to give ground, it would benefit us. It would. How am I trying? It's like if you go to it's like if you're going to meet someone on Craigslist and you're buying like a bike or something, and you're like and you want to like let me put it this way. If you're selling a bike on Craigslist, my metaphors are falling apart. If you're selling a bike on Craigslist and you know the person who's coming is going to negotiate you down, you want to start with like, I'm selling this bike for 120. Like you list it for 130 and then you say, I'm selling it for 120, no less.
Right.
Right. And then the other person's like, oh, well, how about I give you 110? There you go. What you're saying with like Warren is that she's going to come in and basically say, well, I'll sell it for $100. And then the person who's trying to buy the bike will be like, well, how about I give you $80? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Does that make sense? It's just having a stronger starting point for negotiation would give us more. Does that make sense?
No, I think that is a fair criticism. Frankly, Elizabeth Warren is not a politician. She's a teacher who said, I'm tired of this shit. Let me take over. And now she's a senator of Massachusetts. Like, she's not a politician. She knows how to plan things and how to get shit done, but she doesn't know how to play the game very well. And my main concern is, like, frankly, if that is the case, I would rather Bernie in office, because he will steamroll people, and that's great. My main concern is the next generation of reactionaries, because if they get more fuel to be more angry for the next 4 years, they're going to be even worse.
But what? Okay.
I am talking about placating the rabid dog for a little bit longer, until all this shit is more palatable for more people. That's really what I'm coming at.
Okay. This is a really good debate. This is an interesting discussion. The problem I'm going to throw to you after you saying that is this. How much longer do we actually have with climate change on the horizon? Almost certainly an economic crash. And I mean, we're overdue for one. Historically, on average, every 7 years, there's a recession. It's been since 2008. So we're 11 years. Yeah. We're a couple years overdue. So, and it's almost certainly, if something like that were to happen, it's almost certainly going to be worse than 2008.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, so, like, what it's, and I understand what you're saying. It's a tough issue, and it's all very scary. But, hey, I will say, if Warren was the nominee, I would vote for her. And I would do it. I would vote for her, like, I would feel optimistic voting for her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're not going to hold your nose and
it's not
punch
like
Chad.
Clinton, where I'm like, vote, hold my nose and vote for Clinton. Oh, it's stinky. Like, it would be a little bit more like, okay, I'm okay with this. Right. I'm okay with Warren. Okay. But, but I would feel a little bit more enthusiastic about Bernie Sanders.
Right.
I don't know. That's just...
Okay, no, that makes sense. I think where you and I are at is, you're looking at it like this is a Hail Mary, and I'm looking at it like, let's just get a few more yards and go from there. I don't think either of those is necessarily wrong, because, I mean, the planet's fucked.
It's going to get fucked. I mean,
our economy
even Bernie Sanders is not going to, like, prevent...
Oh, no. It's
an economic crash.
Yeah. At this point, like, whatever Elon Musk wants to do, I'm for it. Like, I don't care how, like, insane and greedy he is. Like, fine, okay, let's become a multiplanetary species, whatever you need, bro. Because we gotta, if humanity will not survive on Earth, barring miraculous advances in technology, which all require money at this point, which isn't happening. But...
and climate change, that is like the biggest issue. Like,
it's frankly, it is the only issue.
If that's not fixed, Nothing can get fixed. Everything will get worse.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we're already like over certain limits
Right.
on this problem.
Yeah.
But it's still reversible, and we can still do something about it.
No, yeah, absolutely. I am being hyperbolic when I say, like, we're all going to die. Oh, God, oh, God. But, there definitely are technologies and things that can be implemented to start reversing the effects. And, like, things are going to suck for a while. Like, millions of people are going to die with rising ocean levels and, wildfires, and just, it's going to be awful.
It's going to be bad.
But what I'm looking at it from is things are bad. They're going to be bad. Let's take a step towards making them a little less bad. And then we can take, if I'm being honest, if that goes well, then we can take a little bit of a bigger step. And, that it's a more measured approach. It's a more cautious approach. And again, considering that, like, Uncle Clarence is going to be an asshole about it, and he's all Hillary for jail and stuff like that. Like, there are always going to be people like that. And, oh, wow. I'm just waiting for the boomers to die. And I think that's our best chance.
Yeah.
And that's cruel. I love my parents, but
we'll get the communist revolution when the boomers die.
Yeah. And
they got another probably 20 years in them.
Yeah.
For most of them. So
exactly. and that's the thing is, like, millennials are the largest population in the United States right now. And I mean, most of us don't vote. I get that. But
I think we'll see more vote in this coming election.
I do think so.
I think Trump is bad enough that a lot of people our age are like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're looking at concentration camps and be like, shit, I have to vote.
Yeah, yeah. And that's great. That's awesome. Like, the tide is turning. I do see that.
Yeah, I hope so, man.
And really, I'm a millennial. I know millennials. Most of my friends are millennials. I don't want to spook them. Like, honestly, I'm like a hair's breadth away from getting one of my best friends to vote for the first time ever.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, millennials have this reputation of being like all like, I mean, like,
oh yeah, they're flighty and
AOC is like considered like, oh, this is what millennials are. Right. It's like, no.
Right.
Like, most millennials are not like that far left.
No,
most millennials, there are more liberal than boomers for sure.
Right.
They're more progressive overall, but there are still like a large portion of them that are either apolitical or haven't decided or whatever, because their parents were super like conservative or religious or whatever, which is the kind of background that both you and I have. So that reputation that they have, that they are socialists and they're going to destroy the world with their socialism.
Oh yeah, it's boomer propaganda.
Yeah, it's totally absurd. As far as like what, like, I haven't kept up with like Zoomer culture that much.
I can't.
But from what I've seen, is they're actually less progressive than millennials, and I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't think there's any data out there for that yet.
There can't be.
But we'll see. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's ride out this election and see what happens.
Right. Honest, and that's where I'm coming from. Is like,
and another thing is like I will say that like it is possible that a person like Warren or Sanders, if they were to become president, that people on the left will become complacent, and that I don't want to see for sure. I would say that like I think a lot of the supporters of Bernie Sanders are less likely to be complacent when Sanders becomes president, because they perceive themselves as being a part of like an actual movement. And, Bernie Sanders' whole like campaign style is to bring people together. And, his entire thing has been like grassroots, building this up like from the ground up kind of thing. He's been doing that since 2016, and he hasn't stopped since then. Like, it's been ongoing. Like, it's not that he kept campaigning after 2016, but his message has resonated among many, many different organizations and like groups of people. Like, it's actually quite remarkable, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in my lifetime as far as politics goes. And I think that's a powerful thing. I think that's a really powerful thing, and I think that actually makes Bernie Sanders' movement more resilient to complacency. I could be wrong. I don't know. But
no,
whereas
I
feel
would
like
agree
Warren,
with that.
Like if Warren became president, well, I don't know. We'll just have to see. But
yeah, and I would agree with that. But there's Bernie Bros, and it wasn't huge, but they were not a negligible factor in the 2016 election.
Do you mean like the people who were like Bernie or bust?
Bernie or bust.
Okay. No, I wasn't for that.
Yeah, a lot of them didn't vote for Hillary or voted for Trump.
No, and I think that's bullshit. But I feel like the movement is not quite like that this time around.
Oh no, I totally agree with that.
That's just my sense of it. I just haven't gotten that. I feel like Bernie Sanders' base has grown to include a lot more minorities and a lot more people in poverty and a lot LGBT people and stuff like that. I think it's grown quite a bit in that direction.
And, yeah, I agree. And I do think that between him and Warren, whoever gets the nomination, 90+% of their supporters will go for the other. Yeah. I fully believe that.
I would imagine that's probably the case too. I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait to see if Bernie or bust people will like emerge. It seems like the situation right now is too dire for that. Mm-hmm. With Trump in office and actually doing shitty things. And also, if it's between Sanders and Warren gets the presidency, I don't think most Bernie Sanders supporters would see Warren as being like that much worse than Sanders. Yeah. That they would be Bernie or bust. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that will be less of an issue.
Right.
But I definitely agree with you that was like that was some stupid bullshit.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of the reason I bring that up is because you spoke about complacency earlier. And I do see that complacency coming back if Bernie Sanders is elected president.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, obviously, we have to wait and see. This is why I love politics. It's my sport. I love it. It's exciting. You don't know what's going to happen. Like,
I feel like it's more complicated than it's ever been, and that's partially because of how polarized things have become.
Yes,
and like I said, that's all just a part of the dialectical process, the Hegelian Marxist shit. That's why more people are kind of like looking at Marx and be like, "Was he right, dude?" Like, shit is like. Like, it really is kind of like a dialectical process. Like, things are getting, like, is a revolution going to happen? Like, what the fuck? Like, people are like, whoa.
Yeah. And you know, there does eventually have to be some sort of conflict between the two extremes. Be it a ideological conflict or a civil war. Like, we're definitely going to debunk that video and talk about it. Because there are people out there who are saying, I'm not calling for a civil war.
Yeah.
And then give you tips on how to survive the next civil war and how it's going to happen and how to implement it. So that is on the minds of some people. And it's not a small number of people.
Can you remind me, like, I mean, I know you sent, I remember, I didn't end up watching it, but do you remember who the guy was? I
think his name's like John Marks or like John Smith or something.
I'm surprised I've never heard of him.
He's very underground and he runs in white nationalist circles.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like, I like to keep up with that because it's so wacky and like I've heard like, you know, like people like No Bullshit and like Nick Fuentes and people like that. Like I've kept up with some of what they're doing. I'm surprised I haven't heard of him for that reason.
Yeah, no, this guy's the worst kept secret on the right.
Really?
Yes.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. We will most definitely
do that
get
next
to
time.
That.
We should do that next time. We should talk about that guy.
Yeah. He's batshit crazy. He has some statistics and things that are accurate.
Oh, they've all got that.
But his extrapolations are
they've all got their statistics and they're all wrong.
He's like,
well, they're not always wrong, but it's just like the way they cite them.
This guy is worse than that article. He's like, so Democrats want to like give free healthcare to everybody, and then they're going to rape your babies to death, and then they're going to take all your bullets away. So you better stock up now. Like It's insane.
I love that. That's so. Oh man, I can't wait to tear that shit up.
Yeah. No. Oh my god,
that sounds so
crazy.
fun.
We're gonna watch so many of his videos.
All right. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you know there are people who want and are looking forward to a civil war, a second civil war.
I think when one happens, they're going to be like, "Oh shit, I didn't mean that."
Oh yeah, no,
Like, no one
absolutely,
actually wants that.
Absolutely. So there has to be a critical mass at some point where that fight like starts. Mm-hmm. I would rather, and this might just be me personally, because I do often act this way in my personal life. I would rather bide my time and level up, so to speak, gather more followers, turn the ideological subconscious of the people more left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're standing more on one side of the knife than another.
Yeah,
that's where I'm looking at it from, especially with young people, because I do see the grandpas talking to their grandchildren about, how things used to be and all this stuff. And, there is kind of a flippancy towards facts in our society today. I'm guilty of it. My little cousins are guilty of it. It's just, that's kind of how things are. I would rather take a measured, thoughtful approach to making things a little bit better, and then a little bit more better, and then a little bit more better, rather than going for it all at once.
Well, okay,
because if
for a lot of leftists, like Bernie Sanders is the measured approach.
Okay, I can
that's
see
what
that.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Just coming from I recently got a Twitter and I'm following like legit communists and seeing what they have to say and stuff. And they're like most of them are optimistic about Bernie Sanders and even Warren in some cases. But for them, Bernie Sanders is a compromise. But of course, these are fringe left people, so.
Right? But what is Bernie to someone who is apolitical or more centrist?
And that's a good question. I've seen a lot of people who are apolitical get behind Bernie Sanders. A lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's magnetic.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Is when people go to his speeches and he's speaking he seems like he's speaking directly to them and their actual problems. Those are the types of people he's attracting, working class people, union people, families that work multiple jobs and things like these are the people that are attracted to him. These people aren't, a lot of his supporters aren't necessarily far left revolutionary thinkers,
Right.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I had a feeling we would get to this point. I think we're agreeing wholeheartedly.
Yeah. This is an interesting discussion. I don't necessarily entirely disagree.
Right.
I think the thing that kind of makes me hesitant is by describing it as it being an incremental thing instead of thinking of it in terms of here's what we want, and this is just going into the political arena with the understanding this is what we want, this is our goal, even if it takes us 100 years to get there. This is our goal, and sticking to that. You see what I'm saying? Instead of compromising and saying all right, well, let's get public option and maybe in 5 or 10 years we'll get something better.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And in the meantime, millions of people, or not, tens of thousands of people will die because our health system isn't up to snuff.
Right.
In that time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Have you ever asked a Christian if God is real?
All the time. No, what do you mean?
You know that panicked flounder where you're sitting in the comments section and you see the dots pop up and then they disappear, and you see them pop up again and they disappear, and then they call you a stupid doo-doo head and block you?
Yeah.
That's the right now.
Yeah.
And
so your concern is what the right is going to do.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. My concern is punching the bull. They're loud,
right.
and they're influential, and they're rich.
It's a wasp's net.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe this because I always play a stealth character in video games.
No,
I'm more about going around the back and being like,
I get it.
Boom, Medicare for all.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. I've thought about that, actually. I've thought about, so he calls himself a socialist, and there's a lot of, commentators, on television and stuff, who are why do you call yourself a socialist, and blah, 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 when they're interviewing him. Even, what's his name? Trevor Noah, when he interviewed AOC, this was a year ago or something.
Yeah.
He interviewed AOC, and gave AOC the same like spiel about like, have you ever thought about just like not calling yourself a socialist so that you're not, poking the wasp's nest?
Right.
Like, so I've thought about that. And if I recall correctly, she had a pretty good answer to it. But because I guess, one of the things that Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing is kind of changing the way people think about that term.
Absolutely.
But, I understand wholeheartedly that term still triggers people, still like makes people terrified. And a lot of that is left over from the Cold War, which the boomers lived through, and, McCarthyism, that kind of thing. And these boomers passed it on to their kids, and the kids just absorbed it and still believe it. And they were taught from a very young age that like socialism is the worst thing in the universe.
Yeah.
That if we went socialist, everyone would starve to death. Like it doesn't matter whether it's rational or not, because it's totally not rational. It doesn't make any sense. That that people believe that. And like if Bernie Sanders became president, they're gonna freak the fuck out. I totally agree with that. Yeah. And I don't know what to do about that.
Right.
I'll be honest. I don't know how to deal with that without it being like, just shut the fuck up, boomer.
Right. Exactly. And I don't want to say that there's not a place for people like Bernie and AOC. I think they have done tremendous things for our democracy. And I think AOC especially, she's a waitress.
Yeah,
she's a waitress, dude, and now she's a fucking congresswoman.
I know it's actually extraordinary because like people on the right like hate her.
Oh my god, they're obsessive.
It's so funny though because a part of that is the reason why she's so popular.
Absolutely,
so famous.
Yeah,
like they're
definitely
making her famous. Those are the people giving her news coverage. Because you see what I'm saying? Like,
right.
If the right wing was just like, oh yeah, whatever, another congresswoman, she would not have the platform on Twitter or on our news site, on our news outlets that she does now.
Right. And that's exactly my point. Is some waitress in Oklahoma sees AOC on the news and on Fox News, and Tucker Carlson goes, "She's a waitress," and the waitress goes, "She's a waitress?" And, she might not ever really do anything about it, but it's sometime, somewhere, some waitress is going to see AOC on the news and go, that's awesome. And run for their local board of education or something, And so I do think that I think there needs to be kind of a hand-holding between I hate to call it centrist, but the more centrist Democrats like Warren, because at this point the right has pulled so far to the right that centrist means Joe Biden is a Republican. So Warren is more centrist and Bernie is much more leftist than she is, I think. And I think that middle ground needs to be closed by just saying, we both got shit to do here, let's get it done.
I'm not against that at all. I'm totally in favor, people on the left call it coalition building.
Yeah.
They don't. There's some really fringe leftists who hate that.
Yeah, whatever.
And I'm not a part of them.
Yeah.
We call them tankies. Fuck tankies because they're fucking insane. Okay. But yeah, like I agree with that pretty much wholeheartedly. Like I said, that's the reason why I would vote for Warren if she were the nominee.
Right.
That's the reason why if she were trying to pass a public option, I would support it. Even though I would much rather have Medicare for all. Yeah, I think that needs to be the mindset of leftists. I think leftists need to think about this in terms of, like, what can we accomplish?
Right.
By working together. Because I think that's kind of the whole idea of socialism in general, is, like, working together,
Yeah, of course. See, and the alternative is Trumpism, where you strong arm everybody, and if anybody disagrees with you, you go, no, liar, no, you're wrong, no, until they shut up or join your side. That's the only other option. And that's why the Republican Party has been hijacked.
Sanders wouldn't do that.
No, neither would anybody. on the left. You know, the major contenders.
Besides
really.
a tanky. Like, if there was a tanky running.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking for that sweet, like, sky blue spot in the spectrum, you know, where it's like, yeah, let's get shit done, you know? Like, let's work hard to do something and change things. And then on the other side, you have fuck everything, burn it all down. And then on the other side, you have Republicans. You know, that's kind of where we're at right now. Yeah. So I think people like AOC in the House fighting to pass laws, federal laws that legalize marijuana, and, you know, like, she will be a spearhead on anything having to do with healthcare that comes to the House. And people like that need to be in those positions. AOC 2028, fuck yes. I'm totally voting for her.
Yeah.
And that will probably happen because she will be at that point.
I mean, she probably could run for president right now if she wasn't so young.
Yeah,
I don't think she's old enough.
No, she's not. Which is insane, you know? But we also need people like Adam Schiff who can sit in a room with a bunch of Republicans and go, stop talking, dude. Like, yeah. You're not allowed to talk right now, and you agreed to this, so funny, stop talking.
Kind of watching that whole thing with the impeachment inquiry. I like that Schiff has been really strong on that, but Schiff is one of those, like, really centrist Democrats.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when it comes to policy, but him as a character, like, fighting in the impeachment thing has been kind of cool to see. Right. So yeah, I do think it's not a black and white thing, and I think that's like, people shouldn't think about things that way, and I totally agree with that.
Right. And when we were walking into the voting location in 2016, I turned to my partner. I said, "Vote blue." I don't say that because blue or die. I would rather a centrist Democrat be elected than a centrist Republican, because there's a better chance of the party shaming or strong-arming or convincing or influencing that centrist Democrat to vote more left and to fall in line with more leftist policies than there is with the Republican.
When I'm in the booth, I vote Democrat down the line.
Yeah. At first, I felt kind of weird about saying that.
Yeah.
Because we were raised red or dead, you know, always vote red no matter what. It doesn't even matter. Like, I know both of our parents would have voted for Roy Moore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, shit, damn.
Like, I know that. That's a fact.
My parents aren't like that. My parents are a little bit different.
My
dad is, I kid you not, my dad is an anarcho-capitalist. I'm not kidding. Like,
yes.
And that's why we have the funniest arguments.
So much fun.
So he actually just doesn't like any of them. Like,
he
hates all of them. But he's super right-wing and super conservative. Like, when it comes to his values. Anyway, I don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
No. But, you know, like, that's my mindset. That's what I was raised with. So when I think vote blue, my brain goes, oh, yeah? We're going to do this again? I'm like, no, this is different. You know? But that's kind of the mentality I'm trying to impart to the people around me.
Here's the thing.
I would rather somebody closer to my viewpoint be in charge, even if we disagree on most things, because we can at least find things to agree on, you know?
Well, here's the thing. Most people think that, like, voting for someone is endorsing everything they do.
Right.
And that's not the case. Voting is not about endorsing someone. It's about, and this is how democracy works in general, it's about making sure that your values are represented as much as possible. It's not about, like, endorsing a person. And it's a big thing, like, big problem I have with, like, U.S. politics in general is how much emphasis is put on a person's personality or a politician's personality or their, you know, and to an extent it does matter because you want someone who has the rhetoric.
Well, we've learned what a bad personality does in politics.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. But there still needs to, when you vote, you shouldn't be thinking as much about that as you should be thinking about which politician does the best to represent your values, because that's what democracy is about, in my opinion.
No, I would agree with that. And I think that's why I'm an Elizabeth Warren supporter, because my values are fact-based, evidence-based, slow, measured, thought out. You know, that's how I try to live my life, is I would rather measure twice and cut once. I want everything to be, I want to know all the angles. I want to have as much information as possible before I go into a situation. And
well, I guess my issue would be like, why do you think that Sanders isn't that? I mean, he's really not that much more radical than Warren.
No, absolutely.
And his plans are pretty detailed and pretty well thought out as well.
Yes. That, I think, comes down to, I hate to say it, but personality. You know? Because,
okay.
like, I know. You can scold me later. But it's... My mom once said to me, did you know that Bernie Sanders has only introduced, like, 4, like, bills since he's been elected? And I was like, what? And this was back like in 2015, and I barely knew who he was. So I went and looked it up, and yeah, that was true, but they were the same 4 laws because they were like huge, monumental things that needed to happen. And he kept doing it and being like, fuck all of you, we need to do this, and I'm going to keep coming up here until someone bends.
Well, see,
and that's
the thing
tenacity, and I do appreciate and respect that.
That's the thing with like representative democracy. For one thing, a senator's job is to vote for bills and then get them to the president's desk. You don't as far as I know, you don't have to introduce bills.
No, yeah.
There's nothing about introducing bills that makes you a better politician than someone who doesn't.
Right.
It just matters what bills you vote on.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, that's a weird criticism.
I know.
But what does that have to do with like the personality issue that you have though?
I think it's mostly the tenacity of it, and frankly, I don't see as much in Bernie's record of him willing to bend on things a little bit.
Okay.
You know, and to be fair, that $130 thing is for the bike is, yeah, but I mean, you know, $130 for the bike, I feel like Bernie would say like 125, you know, and no less. And not to say that that's a bad thing, because there does need to be strong arming of the Republican Party at this point.
That's a huge thing, because guess what? That's what Republicans do.
Yeah, of course.
They never stop doing that.
The thing is, they get away with it.
Republicans don't budge on anything.
Yeah, no. And then that's because they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care about anything except getting their way. And
they would be content with nothing getting done.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because that's better for them.
That's what happened with the Supreme Court seat, is they would rather just nothing happen.
They would rather just go into Washington D.C. and just sit on their ass and do nothing than then compromise on anything if it means them and their billionaire friends making less money.
Right, absolutely. And I think to me, the way I see it, Warren is more likely to go, okay, I guess I'll budge a little, and make them feel like they've got something, you know? And it's manipulative and it's sly.
I think that's an awful lot amount of faith to put into the Republicans. I don't know, man. I think they're gonna do the same shit they did with Obama as they did with Warren. Exact same thing.
I do think so, but I think either of them have the wits to do this. But I think that Mitch McConnell is not a stupid man, but he's short-sighted and he has tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. And like any good boss at the end game of any video game, there's a way to beat that.
Yeah.
And that's to go for the blind spot.
Okay.
While they're watching your shadow run around, you know? That's the way I view it. And again, that's just my personal feelings on it, you know? Because that's all we have right now, really. You know, until next November, we really don't know. Like, we really have no idea what's going to happen. Like, honestly, I think it's a coin toss on whether Trump gets reelected.
I don't know, man. Like, it's hard to say. I think it's unlikely right now, but we're just going to have to see.
Yeah.
But here's my solution, okay? And we can wrap it up after this. This is my end solution, okay? We challenge Mitch McConnell to a battle in Minecraft.
Yes.
And if he loses, he gets the Minecraft guillotine.
Yes, absolutely. We just have to find a way to digitize Mitch McConnell and his mind so that it actually works.
Okay.
No, I think that's a good note to end
I've
on.
never even played Minecraft. I don't even know, like, can you PvP in Minecraft? Is that a thing? I don't even know.
Yeah, totally.
I just mentioned Minecraft for the meme, the joke.
It's okay. I think it works.
Anyway.
I really think that, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who of them gets elected. My idea of how to get to, the United Federation of Planets is different from your idea, but I think it really comes down to coalition. It comes down to, we want the same things. We might disagree on how to get there and what it looks like, but we can both agree that whatever the opposite of that is bad. So let's just do the opposite of that. And we can't have Bernie broism. We can't have, flip-flopping on Trump or Hillary or whatever. They're both just as bad.
Yeah.
That just can't happen. And that has to be remedied.
I don't think anyone in good faith could argue that Warren is just as bad as Trump. No. If it comes down to that and there are people saying that, just fucking just toss yourself in a river in
Seriously.
Minecraft. Okay, please.
No, it's really just like the lesser of two evils at this point. Luckily, the lesser of the evils is not bad.
Not that evil. Just kind of like wonky.
Right, exactly.
But yeah. All right. Well, folks, you have been listening to Up the Down Escalator. I hope everyone has a good day. Thanks for listening.